Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. We're going to talk about Gen Con. We're going to talk about tabletop gaming, and we're going to talk about an implosion at Gen Con. This is kind of crazy. Yeah, I know I've seen some stuff on Twitter about it from some people that write science fiction. I think I might have seen some people retweet John Delarose. I haven't been following this. I do know that Gen Con, like, look, when we talk about these different nerd scenes being compromised by Tumblrites and activists. Gen Con, maybe not Gen Con specifically, but the tabletop scene was absolutely positively the first to fall, in my opinion. That's where I first noticed it before a lot of these current day modern audience issues started pushing into comics and eventually into TVs and movie and animation. It seemed to start with the tabletop scene. And they didn't really put up much of a fight either, I think, is what happened. I think that was like the key difference. Whereas video gamers are fighting back hard. Comic book creator kind of, sort of fought back. We had the whole Comicsgate drama. But with Gen Con, tabletop was just like, hey, let's let all the theater kids and activists into the scene, and they're going to take it over, and they're going to change everything, and they're going to kick out the old guard, and then they're going to actually go so far as to demonize the people that created these games, demonize the people that were accused of creating demonic games back in the 80s, by the way. Oh, the irony of that. But it's a very, very different scene. It seems like it's kind of, sort of starting to pivot back to center a little bit, but I would say tabletop is much more quote unquote compromised than other nerd scenes. So let's talk about this. This is kind of fresh to me. I haven't really looked at yet. Black Sage D sent me this tip, so thank you very much. This is Daniel Friedman on Twitter X, author of mystery novels including Don't Ever Get Old, nominated for the Edgar, Anthony, and Thriller Awards. Okay. I'm not familiar with you, Daniel. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, first of all, the source for this is a rundown of Eric Scott Debye, who seems to have rounded up the facts but has a very different take on it than I do. You can read his account here. Okay. Gen Con, so this is a whole thread. This is a thread, and we'll go out to this original post here after we're done reading the thread. Gen Con is an enormous science fiction and fantasy convention originally founded by Dungeons & Dragons creator Gary Gygax, who they demonize and who people who actually volunteer at this convention can't even pronounce his name. They don't even know how to pronounce his name, and he started the damn thing. And Wizards of the Coast has demonized guys like Gary Gygax, men of a certain color and certain age from the flyover states. Even as recently as their 50th anniversary, they were trying to hype up the 50th anniversary D&D products, and they were making disparaging comments about that particular demographic, which is what created these games in the first place. But I digress. The Writers Symposium is a panel of fantasy authors, and when writers R.A. Salvatore or Brandon Sanderson are speaking, it's a very big draw. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson, I don't know how many of you are familiar with him, but he might actually have the biggest Kickstarter of all time. It was like $45 million or something for his books. Like, I really wasn't that familiar with him. And then people are like, oh my God, Brandon Sanderson. I'm like, it's not like Stephen King or something, right? Like, I didn't realize he was that big of a deal, and he's a huge deal. In 2024, the organizing committee was chaired by E.D.E. Bell, who wanted to focus the event on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Haven't you gotten the memo, E.D.E. Bell? The memo is all of this stuff is out the window now. All these companies are pivoting back to profit. Although the committee was supposed to book 4 writers, they only booked 2. Horror writer Linda Addison and cultural critic and author of Hood Feminism, author Mickey Kendall, who was the featured speaker. Gen Con does not take political stances. They say that. They were expecting an event featuring popular fantasy authors, and instead the symposium committee delivered them a panel of social justice activists. The convention organizers were furious with the symposium committee. That is a change. Because remember, it was Gen Con. It was only half a decade ago that the Quartering got punched at a bar outside Gen Con. One of the vendors threatened to punch him because he did not like, as I recall, he did not like his opinions on, I think it was Anita Sarkeesian, and he kept making videos about Anita Sarkeesian. So he said, hey, I'm going to track you down at Gen Con and punch you. And he sure as hell did. He hit the quartering, and then the quartering got banned. And the vendor, I think he got a slap on the wrist. I think he's probably still back. But yeah, I mean, this is interesting. This is really interesting because a couple of years ago, this would not have happened. They would have been too afraid to be like, yeah, we don't want a bunch of activists on our writers panel. Thank you very much. This kind of happened with BackerKit. BackerKit had a virtual tabletop summit or something like that, and they had some featured speakers. And because a good majority of the featured game developers were older white men, people on Twitter started complaining, even though a bunch of other people that were there were not straight white men. But because the biggest names just happened to be, Twitter had a meltdown and was like threatening BackerKit and all stuff. And it's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, if you look at the full list, they've got, but even then, like this, people aren't going to tune in to listen to an activist who hasn't done anything talk about activist shit. They're not going to. Daniel says there was an emergency meeting between the symposium committee leaders and the convention organizers and several more contentious meetings. The organizers complained Kendall had zero appeal, and Bell accused the organizers of being racist. Of course they did. Look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter your gender, the color of your skin, whatever. If they're bringing in writers or creators to host panels, they're doing it because they want people to pay to get in, to go listen to these people speak. And if nobody knows who the hell you are, hey, some random activist is going to speak at this panel that has had people like Brandon Sanderson and R.A. Salvatore, they're not going to show up, right? And it's going to look stupid. Ultimately, Bell and the symposium committee demanded complete autonomy and control over the symposium and threatened to blow up the whole event and go public if they didn't get it. This is a very 2017 take. It was too late at this point to change the plans, so Gen Con relented. Wow. Yeah, so here's the final request. Gen Con would like to reconsider its decision on our relationship for 2024. I'm willing to postpone making any announcement regarding our inability to reach an agreement. Blackmail. For this to be salvaged, Gen Con needs to agree to issue us a contract with terms similar to 2023 as previously communicated, and with the symposium's full ability to expend the resources provided to us as we best see fit within the same reasonable guidelines that we've been operating under for many years. Yeah, they were given free reign. I mean, this is how did Sweet Baby Yang get into video games, and how were they able to extort people? Because nobody stood up to these, and they're bullies. They claim to be marginalized, but a lot of these people are the bullies themselves. And they're using their privilege, because in this particular day and age, being anything other than a straight white man gets you points. So they're using privilege. And if that doesn't work, right? If that privilege doesn't work, then they threaten extortion. And this is how they get in, they take over. First, everybody's like, yeah, welcome to the table. Let's all, hang out together and be cool. And then it becomes very obvious that these people are not there to have a good time. They're not there to geek out. They're there to control the scene. They have to control it. And, this is, people are finally starting to wise up to it. For Gen Con to actually wise up to it says a lot. Wow. The woke panel for 2024 occurred as planned. Mickey Kendall was the guest of honor, and when it was done, Gen Con shit-canned the whole symposium organizing committee. Bell is furious. Gen Con organizers are refusing to have any further meetings with her. Hopefully, Gen Con can heal after excising these toxic presences, and a better committee can be put together for a panel for 2025 that celebrates art instead of activism. Damn! If Gen Con is doing that, if Gen Con is tossing these activists out on their ear, there might be hope. Because, again, tabletop is the most infected, compromised, toxic scene right now. And if Gen Con is like, yeah, we're tired of this, we're done, then yeah, there might be hope. Wow. They said, yeah. They said that, the show went well and our work was appreciated. And also no one on the current committee will be invited back next year. This is extremely distressing to me. The loss to the community is significant, but there are also huge emotional, practical, and financial losses for my family. A whole community was investing in long-term plan for inclusion. You don't turn these things fully around in a couple of years, guys. You need to work on people, manipulate, and embed your activists into every facet of pop culture. And it's going to take decades, guys, decades to achieve the end result. And they're not getting what they wanted. Also sends the message that a pro-inclusion committee can be mistreated and then dismissed without consequence. They always threaten. This is video games too. Why did it take so long to get the activists out of video games? We're seeing all these layoffs in AAA gaming. I can almost guarantee you the super majority of people being tossed out in their ear are either dead weight or activists, and they're using the economy as an excuse to get rid of them, because if they got rid of them when things were doing really well, they would start screaming about it. Why is animation adopting AI so quickly? Faster than other industries. It's not just about the money. It's about getting rid of people like this and doing it and being like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just, hey, things are marching on. We don't need you. This person, I don't know their gender identity. They're going to have a massive shit fit, right? The Gen Con committee was informed tonight by Gen Con with no reason given. The show went well, but no people on the committee will be invited back. I will be requesting a meeting with Mr. Atkinson. At a minimum, I would like a reason given for our dismissal, because without reason, I will only have my own documentation to show regarding how Gen Con addressed issues of both race and disability. Many people were upset that I spoke publicly and also used the terms race and disability at a tabletop gaming convention. Also hearing from many people that my removal from Origin Game Fair over issues related to inclusion is evidence that I must be a problem. It couldn't possibly be me. So apparently EDE Bell has a negative reputation among other convention runners. They said, I'm also hearing from many people that my removal from Origins Game Fair over issues related to inclusion, as they write race as if they aren't ready to believe me, is evidence that I must be a problem. I do not have energy to defend my integrity or the existence of documentation. And no, it means that cons are working very hard to discredit someone who is in and doing the work. Origins Game Fair has a reputation for being a con very comfortable with whiteness. Gen Con Writers Symposium used to have a reputation for being unfriendly to BIPOC and many other writing communities. In the last 2 years, that's changed. I'd say it's the last 5 to 8 years. The last 5 to 8 years has seen so many fan scenes fall to activists like this because I think they didn't know what to do. Right? I think they were afraid of being discredited. But you're saying if you don't get your own way, you're going to do everything you can do to smear the convention. Why the hell would they bring you back? Why would they bring you back? Did you pull the numbers they expected? Like, look, we used to be invited as guests to conventions all the time before YouTube, before the dark times. And some conventions brought us back and some didn't. And sometimes it just depended on the schedule, right? But you do the best job you can do while you're there. And it's nothing personal if they don't bring you back. Well, in this case, I think it might be personal. Basically, she sounds like a troublemaker. And I think these conventions are wising up. I think they're starting to realize, like, hey, we can bring this person in, but they're going to chase off a bunch of other people because people are tired of it. It doesn't even matter what side of the political spectrum you are on. Assholes are assholes, and they come in all shapes, sizes, genders, hair colors, skin colors, And I think we need to go back to a time when you could table the convention and you could display your product and you realize not every product is for every person, right? Like you can bring your blue-haired thirsty sword lesbian tabletop game to Gen Con and realize that it's not for everybody, right? It's not for everybody. But as long as you table respectfully and don't cause a ruckus and you're not an asshole to people, And the same goes on the other side, as long as you aren't an asshole to people. And, I think you should be allowed to go, as long as people realize, like, there are all kinds of different people that are in this space. But what happens is you get these activists into these spaces, and a lot of them, frankly, weren't like old school fans. They're newer fans who are primarily interested in activism, and they get into the space, and then they push out all the old school fans, people that just want to have fun. Nobody likes to be lectured. Normal people don't like to be lectured. Activists, that's what they're about, right? I mean, it's just as annoying as on the other side when you get somebody that's like a hyper evangelist, and like everything out of their mouth is something trying to convert you to their religion, right? It's the same thing on the other side. And so I think it's very ironic that so many of these far left activists are anti-Christian, because I'm like, everything you accuse evangelical Christians of doing, you're doing it, but worse. Like, they weren't trying to get you fired from your job. They weren't getting you to try to kill yourself, right? There's a big difference here, and it's crazy, and it needs to stop. And I think it is stopping. I'm actually seeing some signs of this. Now, I don't know. I've never been to Gen Con, but I've seen so much cancel culture come out of Gen Con that, we're working on, and I think we mentioned this before, we're working on a couple different tabletop games right now. I mean, it takes a long time to do this stuff, right, guys? Yeah, but we're working on a couple games right now. And I think next year we might start trickling some stuff out. But I've really had to think about whether or not I would even be willing to table at Gen Con, because I'm like, it just sounds like it's more hassle than it's worth. Now, that being said, Gen Con is the place to connect with other people that are, looking to buy tabletop games. That's the place, right? Science fiction, that's the place to be. But it has become so infected with activists. And that doesn't mean you can't do activism on your own time, right? I mean, it's just like a job. Like, you want to go home and, do an activism, you want to go picket, you want to go whatever you want to do, glue your hand to the tarmac or a tree or whatever the hell stupid shit you want to do, that's fine. We hire you to do a job. In this case, they're hiring them to come in and bring people to the convention to listen to the panels. And you can go home and do activism on your own time. It's not our responsibility or the panels or the convention's responsibility or your employer's responsibility to bankroll that activism. And that's the biggest change I think I've seen, is that these companies thought it was their job, because a lot of times their HR people and their social media people were also activists, and they basically just infected they infected everything, any form of communication, right? Whether it's tech or whether it's, video games, comic books, tabletop games, publishing, like all these people. And they're not indicative of everybody on the left. That's what's so weird about this. Like, these are caricatures of like the most far left people you could think of. And it's almost like they were all like sleeper agents, right? They all kind of got installed into different areas of entertainment, pop culture, technology, communication, anything that dealt with communication. And then they were all activated in like 2016, 2017. They just like pushed the button and turned them all on, right? And then they just started kicking people out they didn't like, and then they started complaining if you did that, and it's over. The general public is over it. And again, I might be putting words in people's mouth, I probably am, but everybody's tired of it. And we're talking left and right. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's tired of it. Even if they agree with them on some level, nobody wants to go to a convention where you're supposed to have fun and get lectured at, like left-wing church. It's like it's ridiculous. So I don't know, guys. Maybe there's some hope for tabletop. I mean, we saw Hasbro fired a bunch of people from WotC that were dealing with D&D, and these were the people that were denigrating Gary Gygax. Again, Gary Gygax, openly conservative, and that's a problem for some people. They've been trying to purge him from the game for a while now, but I don't know. Interesting stuff. I'll keep an eye on this. I was vaguely aware of it, but you have my attention now. So please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later. Join the reef. Go to clownfishminus.com. That's clownfishminus.com. You will get exclusive access to podcasts and videos and comic strips and more, as well as merch discounts. Check it out. If you were a member, you could get this t-shirt, this dismal t-shirt, on our website. You'd get a 10% discount on that. You can also join in the community on clownfishminus.com. Thank you so much for the support. On with the video.